Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. I just want to take a moment to thank you for being here, for supporting uh, the show, and for sharing it and liking it, of course, and letting others, by your sharing, get to know different aspects of life, different perspectives of life, and also get to know. Um, those individuals that are in our world that think differently or maybe alike, but they bring a different experiences so you do not feel so by yourself. You don't feel like you're alone and you're the only one who experienced that. So, again, just thank you. And looking forward to every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, to see you. And please do share. The more you share, the better it is. Not for me, because I'm not getting paid for this, but it is better for the guests. It is better for you, and it is also a way to open up the conversations that you may not have been wanting to have with others or don't know how to bring them up. I like to, ahead of time, um, ask for your forgiveness. I have a tickle in my throat today. I guess the allergies are a little more than I thought they were today, but I do apologize and we'll keep going. So, welcome, Dr. Yafi. How are you?
Hello, hello. Hi, Glenda. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm excellent.
Good, good. I love that crystal.
I thought you may say that.
No, it looks like wings, first of all, so it's
It is
beautiful.
wings.
There you go. But you could feel the energy. At least I do. I could feel the energy, and that's definitely a beautiful geo opened up
Thank you.
very nicely, very nicely. So now that we're off track, tell us about yourself. So tell us about yourself and your experiences.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Yafi. I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. So in my practice, I come from a very clinical background. Although, as you can imagine, my whole life it's been back and forth clinical, scientific, math loving, science loving, and intuitive, artsy, really wants to do other things that have nothing to do with this world and, of course, everything about this world. So it's
Right.
been like this since I was very, very little.
Mhm.
Uh, I would say even yeah, when I was very, very little, I was kind of a strange kid. I was sociable
Are
and
we all?
normal.
Are
Yeah,
we
I was
all?
sociable and normal in some ways, but in other ways, I was very unusual. I
Mhm.
would run all kind of experiments. And I'm talking like being 5 years old, maybe running like experiments. If I can move object with the energy between my hands, and getting the kids in the neighborhood to basically meditate with me, although I didn't know it was meditation, to see if we could levitate. Had all kind of wild ideas. Some of the parents loved me, some not so much. But that really has been my life since I was very, very little. And then at age 8 years old, I had a sighting. I had a daylight sighting. I was playing with a friend outside, and all of a sudden, our attention was totally focused on this light in the sky. Again, broad daylight. It looked like
Mhm.
a large star if it was night, but it was
Right.
day, and it was the
Mhm.
only star, very large star in the sky. And after staring at it for probably just a few seconds, it did three rounded zigzags and whew, took off.
Mm.
And we looked at each other. Did you see this? Did you see this? And we compared notes, and we were totally blown away. I went and told my mom, who was not very supportive of the woo, and told me that it was probably space junk.
Okay.
And I knew even back then that there is no way it was space junk. I was fascinated the fact that we have space junk. That was a new concept.
Right.
But I knew what I saw was something completely extraordinary. I knew it was intelligently controlled, and I knew it was magical, that it was
Mhm.
something else.
Mhm.
And it really stuck with me throughout my whole life, even though I've been back and forth between different areas of the brain. And then when I did my doctorate in clinical psychology, we're talking about 11 years of
Mhm.
very, very left brain studies. And I really did kind of put away my more artistic and intuitive side for
Right.
that
Right.
until it was towards the end. And then hell broke loose, and it just explosion of spirituality. I think it was repressed for so many years. It
Right. Just
really
poof.
just poof, yes. And that's my latest awakening began, which was either late 2011 or 2012. And
Mhm.
just anything spiritual just fascinated me, and I couldn't have more. I discovered the Seth material, and I started reading books about mediumships, and then my mom crossed over, which made it really personal, and I really wanted to communicate with her, and I really wanted to know beyond doubt that we are spiritual beings.
Right.
And and I think driven by this very personal need. It was different when it was theoretical. As
Mhm.
much as the interest and fascination exploded, it wasn't as urgent until my mom crossed over.
Right.
And then it really, really drove me to reach out and communicate with her. And that's when I started going to the Monroe Institute and
Mhm.
exploring different altered states of consciousness. And that's when I started playing with lucid dreaming and reached my mom in that way in the astral a few
Mhm.
times.
Mm.
And I started developing my intuition and went back to energy healing, which I was actually trained in New York. I don't even 20 something years ago, but I put it aside, and then I went back to it and discovered it on a deeper level. And just my life became more and more magical, more and more interesting, and in some way more challenging
Mhm.
as I really committed, at first unknowingly, and at some point knowingly, to this spiritual path, spiritual journey of both developing myself and growing myself and exploring consciousness in all its layers and supporting others through their own spiritual journey. So I knew I wanted to help others when I chose psychology,
Mhm.
but I thought about it in a mainstream kind of way, as the psychology field
Right.
tends to be and to do. And this whole change with my spiritual awakening, and I really wanted to support others in their own spiritual journey and discovery.
Very nice because I am a big believer that a lot of the consumers that were put away for seeing things or, treated with all these horrific things before was because they were intuitive, because they were able to see the other side. And there was just a lot of fear back then about it.
Absolutely.
So I am glad that you are combining the science with the spirituality. Um, because let's face it, science can prove spirituality, and spirituality can prove science.
Yes, but they're looking at things from such different angles. So
Yes.
science wants you to stay external to everything, which
Hmm.
is doesn't even exist, but they don't know it yet.
Right.
They're discovering it slowly. So science wants you to be external and
Right.
an observer that doesn't affect, doesn't impact what they're observing, which again, no such thing, but
Right.
that's the aim of science.
Right.
While spirituality is all about experience. You
Hmm.
cannot observe spirituality from the outside. You have to be the one at the center of the experience.
Hmm. Hmm. That's very true. So they're catching up with each other.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So, how how was your family? In general, I know you said your mother wasn't so much into the woo woo and all that, the spirituality part, but how was the rest of the family? Uh,
My family was very, very secular and
mm-hmm.
very agnostic would even be a gentle way to put it, because they really didn't want to believe anything outside their intellectual abilities.
Okay.
And there was a little bit of openness to it, because I think there must have been others in my family that were very intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
but the openness was very limited. So when I had amazing intuitive hits, my mom would really be confused. She would call me witchy in like an affectionate way, and
Right.
it also scared her,
Mm-hmm.
because she would say, "Oh, so I grew up in Israel, and I moved myself to New York after high schools, and now I'm in Florida. So I've been in the States for 20 something years now,
Right.
24 years, so many, many years."
Right.
And I would speak to my mom over the phone, and she would say, "You will never believe who I saw at work today." And I would just see an image in my mind. So, and my mom and I were very connected, and I would
Right.
say, and she's like, "Wait, how do you know that? You haven't heard of this woman since you were in elementary school." And I'm like, "I don't know. I just saw an image of her in my head." And she's like, "Do you even know how she looks?" And I'm like, "Good point. I don't really know how she looks." But something with a visual aspect and knowing came about, and it was very accurate, way beyond chance, way beyond deniability. And
Mm-hmm.
my mom would just kind of half have fun with it by calling me, "Oh, you're such a witchy." And then on the other hand, there was a part of her that was scared of it, because she didn't know what to do with it. What do
Right.
you do with something that you don't really believe in, but you know that is true?
Mm-hmm. And, at the same time, trying to figure out how to protect you because that's what a mother does.
Yeah, so when I was little, there was definitely some of that. And she would say, "Oh, stop with, don't worry about this nonsense," when I was very, very little.
Right.
But then when I was older and I was into it, she didn't need to protect me anymore, but she still had the inclination to protect herself,
Right.
hence the fear.
Right. 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 So, so that was your mom. Anybody else in the family kind of you discussed it with?
No, everybody was kind of the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mom was the main caregiver. My dad was working. My sisters were much older than me, so they were out of the house.
Right.
So it was really my mom at the center of my upbringing. And she
Mm.
was a smart, curious person, generally very open-minded, generally. When I would ask her, and I asked a million questions when I was little, when I would ask her, "Mom, is it possible that yada, yada, yada?" She would answer, "Yafi, anything is possible." And I love that. I was like, whoa. And I still love that. I think it's such a perfect answer.
Yes, it
So,
is. Yes, it
yeah,
is.
so my mom's openness and wisdom was really an anchor, despite the fact that she was not open specifically to spirituality and faith.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so through the years, you kind of went full circle and went back to spirituality. How was it being used? Like, so if you have a client who's just for the psychology part,
Hmm.
has it been helpful to you to be intuitive? Because then when you're talking to them, you could tell if there's something not right, not whatever. How has
Yeah.
that been experienced?
Yeah, fortunately for me, since I graduated my doctorate and went on my own, I
Hmm.
knew my practice was spiritual. So
Right.
anyone that would come to me, even just from mainstream therapy,
Hmm.
knew of my spiritual drive. My website was all about that. My business card was all about that. That's what it was about. That was my
Right.
passion. That was my interest. So people that really didn't jive with that wouldn't come to me, even if they came to me for very standard practices.
Right. Right.
So I was lucky in that way, because again, the people that came to me were open to it in some way.
Mm.
But even before that, when I was working for others and I didn't really connect to my intuition in a conscious way, I'm sure that even then it was very helpful. And in fact, I think that probably all people that are real people's person and
Hmm.
have real compassion and empathy and can tune into people, that a part of it is intuition. We
Hmm.
connect to each other even when we don't realize. We overlap in our consciousnesses even when we don't realize.
Very
So
true.
I think it was helpful to even make me interested in the profession before I knew how much of my life and of my mind it took. And now in my practice, yes, people are completely open to it. Even when I work with athletes, I do hypnosis a lot. It's one of my main practices, even
Mm-hmm.
before I graduated. So even when I work with athletes for peak performance, they know I'm on it and they know I'll say things, and they're open to it. They're used to me. Even if they don't have that in the rest of their lives,
Right.
they're with me. They know it's a part of the whole package.
Mhm. Good, good. And it's refreshing to hear that, especially athletes that are, open to that, because I'm sure it's helping them, those, especially those that may have intuitive gifts, uh, in a certain way. It's great because they could be their own self, their own natural self with you, and
Mhm.
then go back and be the athlete.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
So.
I think intuition and hypnosis really goes hand in hand, because not only when you do hypnosis for people, you connect them to their own intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered very early on that when I do, for example, past life regressions or even heal your inner child, that I get glimpses of what the people are seeing and experiencing. So it gives me a greater ability to be with them wherever they are, to work with them wherever they are. And I also realized pretty early on that as we're doing hypnosis, at first not aware, being aware of it, and now I am aware that there's a form of energy work there.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're stuck in some way, I can move their energy, and lo and behold, the stuckedness goes away, and they can
Mm-hmm.
see more clearly, or feel more clearly, or trust themselves more readily. So there's really a blending of all these different modalities into the supposed clinical practice of
Right.
therapy and hypnosis.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They're catching up to each other.
Yes, yes.
So, now, you had your first experience when you were young, of extraterrestrials, or UFOs, whatever they want to be called, or they're called now. Have you been able to speak to them? Have you, been able to be more on purpose in their presence or them in yours?
Yeah, so this has been a part of my channeling journey.
Hmm.
So, first of all, my channeling teacher is Lisa Royal Holt, and she's all into galactic heritage and aliens.
Aliens,
Really
right,
contact. That's like the main thing that she does.
right.
So I was already interested in that beforehand, of course, but that really brought me back into that world full force.
Hmm.
And I began having more and more contact experiences. So seeing orbs in the sky,
Hmm.
taking pictures of different ships and stuff like that, but also directly through my channeling.
Hmm.
So I channel different sources, but a lot of them have some galactic aspect to them. So, for example, my main source that stayed from the beginning till the end, although we can talk about the beginning, it was kind of wild and interesting, but kind of a bridge that stayed from the beginning to till the end, not the end, till the present,
Right.
is Hathor, that
Uh-huh.
through me came as the divine feminine. However, the more people asked about her nature and her identity, it's there slash her, the more it was revealed that it's really collective from the Sirius star system. So we
Mhm.
already have that alien connection,
Right, right.
and that my group kept on asking, but what about physical contact? And at some point very early on they said this is physical contact.
Mhm.
Yafi is a physical being with a physical vehicle, and what you're experiencing right now is contact. And of
Mhm.
course many people is like, no, but when are we going to see the aliens?
Mhm.
Because that's what we want. And the answer that we got, that this is building up to it, that the primary contact and the initial contact, but the primary contact is done via consciousness. And that's many of the channelers that we have today, like myself, but not only, even people that, as a part of their spiritual journey, connect to different essences, different entities. That's a part of contact. And that's a part of preparing our bodies for, and our minds, for really face-to-face physical contact.
Right.
But what we see as the end goal and what we're looking for so much is not even the primary goal of this all. It's really to teach us how to expand, again, our minds, our bodies, our energies, and through contact. Contact, I think, is a big part of it.
Yes, yes. And myself being a channeler, and channel many beings, galactic or otherwise, it is every single time about what you feel as far as energy, what you get to see. And I'm not talking about my, the physical eyes, the third eye, how you get to experience that interaction, which people just think it's like, oh yeah, they're just talking through you or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you get to feel their energy while they're
Because
in.
we're merging. That's
Right.
what channeling is. I'm not being possessed by an external force and become helpless. We
Right.
are, we are, first of all, I'm inviting them, and
Right.
we are merging our consciousnesses. We're merging our energy. So in essence, I'm becoming more of them and they're becoming more of me every time we do this, which is why it's such a beautiful journey of self-growth and expansion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, you said your group. You have group sessions and.
Yes, every Sunday I channel on Zoom and I still do it weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I never stopped. I had that channeling training and we did all these practices 3 times a week, 5 times a week. And I think everybody else in my group stopped. I think everybody stopped eventually. And I never stopped. It just became such an important part of my life and of my journey that it just continued. So currently, in addition to channeling for individual clients, I channel every Sunday on Zoom, and we have a lovely little group. We've been meeting for about 4 years now, every week,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask questions, and I answer in the channel state. So I can say Hathor answers.
Right.
And now we usually open, I'm saying we, but I often say we as I talk about the group, but it's also
Right.
they say we. So there's a lot of plural speaking
Right.
going on.
Right.
So we usually open now with field tuning and or light language,
Mm-hmm.
kind of energizing the field of everybody in the group and having us vibrate in coherence and expanding us even more. And then they come through with a message, and after that we do a Q&A and people get to ask questions and they answer. And at the beginning there were a lot of personal questions, my relationship with my mom, my relationship with this, I had this experience, what does this mean, I feel my throat chakra is blocked, what can I do about that? And after a while, when you meet so regularly, the personal questions really go down and it becomes more general question. How can we understand concepts even more deeply? How can we feel? How can we grow into whatever we are exploring? And also understanding more and more the nature of our reality, the nature of ourselves, and this amazing transformation that is happening on the earth and for humanity right now.
Mm. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. It is nice though to go from the individual thing we're experiencing that, because now you could see the transformation in your group, going from
Exactly.
me to us.
Exactly. And you can really capture this journey when I have 2 books. The first one is Conversations with the Earth, and that was published last year. And that captured the beginning of my journey when I channeled all kind of different sources and just really myriad, like it's endless.
Right, right.
And you know how it is at the channel. When you open yourself, you can invite many different essences. So we
Mm-hmm.
were anything that we were curious about. I sent some kind of an invitation, and we saw what came up.
Right.
But then in my latest book, Conversations with Hathor,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really see the transformation. You see at the beginning when I started channeling with other channeling trainees, and then there were a lot of questions about trust, tons of questions about trust. And how do you know? And how do you trust? And these kind of questions, which are very helpful because everybody that's going through an inner journey has these kind of questions. You don't have to be a channeler
Right.
to ask about trust and about discernment and how do you know and how do you develop. So there's a lot of that at the beginning of the book. And going back to it, when you write a book, you have to go back to all the material and listen to things again and read things again. And it really made clear for me this journey from self-discovery and again a lot of questions about trust and discernment to getting bigger and bigger and bigger in both in the questions and the understanding and where we're taking it.
Very good. Very good. It must be exciting to see that change, um, and to experience it yourself because you also grow and expand at the same time.
Absolutely, but experiencing it and looking back at it is different. Just like hearing about something, you can hear a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, an example would be your humanity is going to go through a shift and all incredible changes. So
Right.
hearing about it years ago and experiencing it now is very, very different. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure that many years down the road, when we're going to look back, again, we're going to have a whole new different perspective and we're going to see it even more differently.
Right. Very true. Very true. So, the your multi-dimensional channeling, um, is that, I know when you send an invitation. Now, do you do it an invitation to anybody in particular, or it's just like whoever wants to show up for the greater good today, or who has a message today?
Yeah, so now I've been working with Hathor consistently for very, very long.
Right.
And usually, unless there's an exception, occasionally I'll still call Viola the fairy if we have fairy questions. Or Isis, sometimes Isis and Hathor are related. I actually think that Isis may be one of the Hathors, but we never asked her that way. And these are just human terminology and
Right.
categories anyway.
Right.
So occasionally Isis will come in. She definitely comes through the light language. But other than that, I pretty consistently now work with Hathor and call Hathor. So in my invocation, I just put myself in that state of love and openness and I raise my frequency. So there are different terminologies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just see it as tuning myself to love and light because that's what I'm interested in. That's the beings I
Right.
want to communicate with. And I connect to Hathor.
Right.
But when I was newer and we wanted to explore different entities, it was half open invitation. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say my group would say, yes, today we're super interested in the Zetas and the hybridization program. What are they doing? So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's great. So what I would do, I would go inward. I would say my invocation of putting myself in love and light. And then I would call anyone from the Zetas that want to speak to us about the hybridization program. And lo and behold, a group of Zetas that were in a ship above the Earth or in the
Mm-hmm.
Earth atmosphere were able to make this connection and started communicating through me. And first, it was a caregiver for some of the hybrid children that was on the ship in training. And then from the children, they selected one who came through me and gave himself the name Alonzo. And we had a full session. I think we actually had two sessions communicating with Alonzo. And I'm saying we are communicating, but I'm really just channeling, and my
Right.
group is the ones asking the questions.
Right.
And
You're
we
just being the conduit for
Yes,
the.
we wanted to know everything. What are they doing? How close are they to contact? How physical are they? What do they do day to day? What do they do for fun? What do they learn about humans? There's so many things that we wanted to know. And
But
that's really what drove the conversation, our curiosities and our desire to learn more about the different beings that we're calling, about their interactions with us as humans. How do they see us? And whatever was fun to know about.
good, good. It sounds like you guys have a great, great group. Now we are going through the shift, of course, and we all feel it. There's some days where we're very drained, and some days we're very energized because we've gone through the hump of that part of the shift. Um, what do you have they given you anything for the future? What is expected? What do you feel is expected?
Yes, they talk a lot. Well, we used to ask a lot about the future.
Right.
And they emphasize, well, first of all, they emphasize the now, how exciting these times in, because just like you said, it can be really challenging, and the pendulum swings quite wildly nowadays. So one day you're here, the other day you're there. And if you listen to the news or live with someone who likes to listen to the news,
You're like la 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 la.
I do go to another room. I actually do.
I hear
But
you too.
you can't really live in a complete bubble.
No.
So, and maybe we should to an extent, but we're still connected to our fellow
Right.
humans.
Right.
So you really have to have a hand on your pulse, not to be dragged into the fear,
Hmm.
not to allow your frequency to just drop, because that will drain you like nothing else. So they do mention that, not the news, but just taking care of ourselves, being discerning with what we allow in, just noticing the conversations that we're having with ourselves. So we don't allow the fear to be what drives us, but
Mm.
instead, again, curiosity, love, connection. That's what we want to be
Right.
doing, being, dealing with. So that's a big part of the conversation. And in terms of the future, it connects to our present. So we know that all these extreme changes are happening. And that is what happens when big transformation happens. There has to be shaking. There has to be uncertainty. There has to be chaos before organization. So I don't know if you've ever seen those. I forgot what it's called. Dynamics. When they play from a speaker,
Hmm.
different frequencies, and they have a sheet with sand,
Hmm.
and the sand organizes itself into different shapes based on the frequency. Now, between frequency and frequency, between shape and shape, there's disorganization, there's chaos.
Right.
And that's a necessary step for the next level of organization. So
Hmm.
that's a lot of what we're seeing now. And one thing that they did mention a lot, they kind of stopped. And I don't know if it's because we stopped asking questions that evoke that, or because that's already happened or happening. They used to talk a lot about nothing can stay hidden anymore. So anything that's broken, anything that's corrupt, anything that needs healing, any wounds, any projections, anything at all has to come to the surface.
Hmm.
And they used to warn us it's going to look like things are just going really, really bad. But really, what's happening is that everything is floating up to be seen and be dealt with. So there are no more hidden wounds, no more hidden dirt.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of what we're seeing, and that they really try to prepare us to the best of their ability. So again, so we don't get overwhelmed and react with fear.
Exactly. Exactly.
But as far as they're concerned, the changes we're going through right now are absolutely beautiful. They're not concerned with our destruction like some people are afraid of. They're not concerned with our political structures. They're just aware that everything is changing
Hmm.
and that it's a beautiful thing. And where we're headed is a new type of organization and understanding, much more in line with the way that we, the spiritual path makers, or the one that really committed to
Hmm.
make this happen, what we feel and what we see. And, you can look around you and see that there are communities that are coming together from every crisis that
Mm-hmm.
happened. Let's take COVID, for example. The whole world went a little crazy. But
Yes,
now we have this virtual connection like we never had before. People are
exactly.
able to work from home like never before. People connecting from all different parts of the world like never before. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not that it didn't exist before. We've had the internet for quite some time now.
Right.
But it really took it to the next level in the way that we could have not anticipated, we could have not predicted. And maybe something so big needs to happen for certain other things to explode in such a big way and become a part of our reality.
Very true. I agree with you right there. Like you said, COVID, everybody went crazy, but it brought out so much other stuff. You remember seeing in Italy the person who played violin just standing on the little area out there, terrace, and just playing for everybody, and stuff like that you wouldn't necessarily see before. You wouldn't have
Yeah.
noticed before.
And
Um,
yes, another beautiful thing that happened is that people rediscovered their connection to nature. People
mhm,
spent more time in parks, on the beaches, just in nature,
right.
and there were fewer humans and therefore more animals. And I know so many people that got into birds and started, me included. It's
Right.
probably why it's in my sphere. That's why I know so many others that,
Right.
or all of a sudden got into birds and noticing the different birds. Birds that you just said, oh yeah, that's a black bird.
Right.
But now there are all these different blackbirds with different calls and different functions and
Mhm.
whatever else, whatever other magic they bring with them.
Right.
And this awakening of love for nature and the
Mhm.
connection to our surrounding in that way, to our natural surrounding, is a part of human evolution.
Mhm.
And it's one of the most, I think, enjoyable aspects of it.
Very true. I hear you. And it's nice because we get to see humanity in a different light. They're
Yes.
finally taking the idea that we are one and including all living things, not just like, oh, human to human, we're one. No, taking it to the correct level, the right
Yes.
frequency. So
Yes.
now, you, of course, you connect to your higher self, your guides, and all that other stuff. When did you start to realize exactly what you were doing? Because we always talk when we're young. We always talk to the my friend, my invisible friend. But when did you realize you were actually connecting to a guide or your higher self or a different consciousness?
Yeah, I think only in my late teens, I guess it's not even really teens, like 17-year-old, 18-year-old. That's when I started realizing that some things that I know are really beyond, like, I could no longer make excuses that it's a lucky guess or anything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when that started happening. But even then, I kind of went back and forth and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. And I would say that it really became more solidified when I started directly exploring connecting to my intuition and developing my psychic abilities. So again, we're talking 2011, 12 or so.
Right.
And I still wasn't sure what's my higher self and what's my guides. And maybe that's a good thing because again, we're so married to categories and names. And sometimes that's not really the point, or even most of the time, I would say it's not really the point. So that's when I really started asking for that connection and making that connection, knowing that I'm connecting to something beyond myself, beyond my understanding. Um, I had the notion of my higher self, but also of guides. Yeah. And quite from the beginning, I would describe people as I was doing readings. So let's say I've been doing readings um, probably about 10 years and professionally 8 years
Mm-hmm.
approximately. So even 10 years ago, when I started doing readings to friends and family, I would describe it as it's as if your spirit team is speaking to my spiritual team
Mm-hmm.
and having me say to you what they want you to hear the most. So
Right.
that's how I conceptualized it from the beginning. So I knew there was something out there, my higher self or my spirit guide, that is able to convey information through the filter that is Yafi.
I explain it the exact same way. It's my team, my spiritual team, whatever it consists of at that moment,
Mhm.
because we have a lot. We have guides, we have a galactic family, as I call it. We have the angelics, we have so on, so on, so on, so on. That
Mhm.
whoever is present at that moment for the conference, basically, as I call it, they speak to the other person's team,
Mhm.
and they relate the message.
Yeah, I
Um,
see it as a party. It seems like on their realm, it's
couple
always
of
a
drinks,
party.
couple of drinks. Hey, how you doing? What's up? What do she need to know? What does he need to know?
Yes.
And basically, yeah, that's a great way of putting it out there. That's beautiful. So, now you do activations of light language and all that other stuff, and we have about a little bit over 15 minutes. Would you like to do one?
Yes, absolutely.
Because no matter when they see this, it would still be an activation. It's energy.
Absolutely. And what I love about, so light language took the longest to grow on me. I thought it wasn't really my thing because it's a little strange and I don't know what it means and how do you know it's real? So that took a little longer to grow on me even than the regular channeling.
Right.
But what I love about it that people really, really feel the energy.
Hmm.
And even people, and I hear that every single time, people that say, I don't really feel energy, so I'm probably not going to feel anything. And they're blown away because they can feel the energy.
Right.
And so I love doing that. I love offering that. I love sharing it with people. My light language usually consists of Isis and the Hathors. So when it's language, I feel like it's more Isis, and her
Hmm.
words, I see them inside as light interweaving around people's spines and heart center and interacting in that way. And Hathor is the one that makes the most more tones and sounds, but also some singing. And I see that as more interactive with people's field and amplifying the field and making sure their field is harmonized. And
Hmm.
I'm sure I'm splitting hairs, but but that's the way I perceive it from the inside as it happens.
And it's okay because that's how you're experiencing it, so you can understand it, so it can flow through you easier and with more intention.
Hmm.
So,
Yes, so I'm going to invite them in
okay,
and I'll share. Let's see, do we want anything specific? Let's just do anything for the highest good of anyone that's going to watch and experience this.
perfect.
Ya orania katariani ueraiena karayana tukrahiena raya urania kataria mahoroi hena rohomaya hekra honomaya Ekrioma turusta heyai. Kukrana ieta rona homa horiana. Hetaro homa hakrahayena. Kukreyana rohoma hai. Uroma heiena kokru Ukromaya. Hekriana torustayane kataranai, uma kakriana torostuhama, hekriana, hekriana, hekriano turoste heyanana. Take a nice deep breath.
Yeah. That felt very soothing, very calming. Thank you. That was beautiful. Um, that was, I could tell the difference. That was definitely, I could feel the energy from Isis coming
Mm.
through. Very powerful, very strong, but yeah, very gentle. It's like,
Yes, to my experience, Isis is more gentle than Hathor.
mm-hmm,
Although Hathor is this beautiful, nurturing mother, she also has an oomph that comes with her or them. And
right.
Isis is more sensual, almost more human, more individual, and
Mm-hmm,
I agree, more gentle. And I feel like she's maybe specifically more involved with magic.
mm-hmm. Yes, it does give you that um, tinge of energy there. That it's more like, it's just calming. Where the other one came in, woof. It's kind of like, okay, let's shake the building so so I could go so the energy could go through it. Okay, got it. All right. That was beautiful. Now, do they ever, when you go channel, do they ever just say, okay, we'll take over, and or did they give you direction? Because you know, I've experienced it both ways, so not everybody's the same way. So,
Yeah, they really want me to get out of the way as much as possible.
mm-hmm.
And because I think I'm too like stubborn and too opinionated.
But I must be too, because all I keep hearing is like, why are you even asking that? Well, right.
Yeah, so they like me to keep myself as much in the background as
Right.
I as possibly can.
Right.
When I was a new channeler, they gave me this metaphor, which I love, that I'm like a juggler. And I
Mm-hmm.
have all these balls that I need to juggle.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is a transmission coming through. Another one would be my thoughts and reactions. Another
Mm-hmm.
one maybe would be my questions. Another
Mm-hmm.
one maybe would be my physical body to make sure that my body is okay. But it's essentially my job to make sure all the balls fly smoothly without colliding, without
Mm-hmm.
interfering. And it really does take a lot of focus to keep that smoothness and that clarity. It takes focus to keep the focus.
But it's true. It's very true.
And in that way I have to be in the background, because if not it's the balls colliding. So I really have to keep myself at bay and kind of keep myself not too confused when information comes through that I don't understand. I
Right.
can have a little bit of confusion, and then I kind of have to calm myself and keep myself in the background so I don't interfere.
Right. Right. Very well put. It's totally understandable. Because the idea is for them to just transmit what's needed at that moment.
Yes, and
Um,
we have so many filters.
oh, we have been put in that box for such a long time that generation to generation just adds to those walls, basically. And now we're trying to bring those walls down, and you bring one down and sometimes it starts to creep up and you're like, no, 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 down, 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 down. But it's the humanity and that pre-programming we've gone through so many lifetimes.
Yes, and we're
Generations.
expanding.
Right.
That means we cannot look back at what we knew to lead us toward what we're going to know, because that's what expansion is. So we have to be willing to be a little confused. We
Mhm,
have to be willing to live with uncertainty. We
mhm,
have to be willing to be wrong
mhm.
time and time again. And
And
it's easier said than done.
yes, and for humans, being wrong is not
That we're failing, something is
right.
wrong with us.
Exactly. And instead of just looking at it as, okay, that what lessons can I take from that? And all right, so what's good I take, what's no good, I have to take different steps, change it
Yes.
around,
Hmm.
mold it into a different vase per se, instead
Yes.
of the same look.
Yeah.
So
One of my journey is recovering from being a perfectionist. Is that I used to tell myself, now I don't need to tell myself that anymore. But that was even before I started channeling. So that was many years ago. I used to tell myself every time I'm wrong, I get to learn something new. And
Mhm.
that really appealed to my curious growing side.
Right.
And I really remind myself that because I really was not cool with being wrong pretty much ever. So I really had to kind of retrain myself. Every time I'm wrong, I'm learning something new. It's an
Mhm.
opportunity to learn something.
Mhm. Mhm. It is very hard. Um, and we just don't realize that those steps that appear to be wrong are actually the right steps to give us an opportunity for growth, for understanding, for evolving, for expanding,
Hmm.
um, and maybe just to find the next thing that we need, right?
Yes. Yes, our understanding is always evolving. It's always changing, and we're adding another layer and another layer of understanding. And some
Mhm.
of those older layers just become irrelevant.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Now, we have about 6 minutes to go. Is there anything you haven't talked about that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, I would like to discuss the fact that, well, a few things. So, one of the things that I'm really passionate about, I really enjoy doing, is teaching other people how to do light language.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't have to desire to become a light language practitioner
Mm-hmm.
because, first of all, I see light language is kind of channeling 101. You're really learning how to channel, how to be in the channeled state.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really, really love that not only you learn how to be a clear channel and how to hold that state of flow, you also learn how to express it with your voice. And our voices are such magical and powerful instruments. And that's something that I've learned more and more through my work with Hathor, who is big about into sound and movement, and in terms of sound, especially the voice.
Mm-hmm.
And people have all kind of issues. Some people don't like their own voice. Other people don't know how to express themselves freely. Other people know how to express themselves if it's very intellectual, but not in a more creative way. And
Mm-hmm.
light language kind of bypasses the critical mind because you don't know what you're saying.
No, you
You
have an
can
incline, but you feel the energy, but nah.
And you're also going to sound really weird sometimes. So, yes, it can sound beautiful, but it can also sound really strange. And
Mhm.
that doesn't make it any less powerful. So, you
Right.
really have to get comfortable with allowing with your voice. So, I really, really, really enjoy that journey of teaching people how to do that and connecting them with their own intuition and with their voice. So this is a class that I really, really enjoy. And as soon as I'm done with one cycle, I start another cycle.
Mhm.
I love it. So that's something I would love for people to know about and for people to participate in. It's really just such a joy to be in that space. And another thing that I would like to bring up is doing different travel and journeys. So I've always been interested. Well, I've held retreats even in my home in Florida and in other locations, but now I'm taking it full on travel. And next January, I'm taking my first group to Egypt, and that's
Nice.
something that I'm really excited about. I have an Egyptian team that's working on getting us the best access, and also I've done an Egypt trip before, and it
Mhm,
was not a spiritual oriented trip; it was just a regular trip.
mhm,
And I realized how much I wanted to be a spiritual trip. So I decided to design a trip exactly with everything that I would want to do. So I made the focus about sound and sacred sound.
mm.
And for example, we're going to visit the temples that are available to do light and sound show in the evenings,
Ooh.
which for some reason groups don't really do that.
Mm.
So my group is going to do light and sound show in the evening. We're going to do different channeling sessions and group meditations. Of course, we're going to do the temples, the Hathor temple. We're going to do the pyramids, the
Mhm.
Sphinx, Luxor temple, different temples.
Right.
So that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. We're going to be a small group. We're going to have our own private boat to cruise the Nile.
Nice.
So we're going to have complete privacy and also opportunity to connect on a really
Mhm.
deep level and eat our meals together. So this is something that I'm really looking forward to. And I'm hoping that there's so much work in putting it together. I don't want it to be a one-time thing. So I'm hoping we can go to Egypt regularly. And there are a few other locations that I'm really interested in. So similar experience that I had was in Peru. I went
Mm.
to Peru, and that was a spiritual trip, but the company was really not good. Which maybe was intentional, so I would want to go back and do it the right way. Because
There
if
you
I've been to
go.
Peru and if it was perfect, maybe I wouldn't want to come back.
Right.
So yeah, so I want to do that. So that's a second location. And the
Nice.
third location that I'm really interested in is crop circles and Stonehenge and that whole area and experience. I've never been to a crop circle.
Mm.
I like Egypt and Peru. I just never been, and I really, really want to go and I want to experience it. And I would love to channel in a
Ooh.
crop circle and see what we could bring.
Mm.
A lot of my channeling is really connected to nature and the earth.
Mhm.
So we do have different things happen, like wind comes in. Like there's definitely an interaction with the elements.
Right.
So I would love to do something like this in Stonehenge or in a crop circle. In a crop circle, I really would love to do that.
That
So
that sounds amazing.
right. So the wheels are turning. The Egypt will be the first trip, and that's January 2026, and then others will follow.
Very good. Very good. And they could find all this in your website, I'm
Yes, I
sure.
can find
Yes.
all of that on my website, yafichanneling.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Insta, but honestly, I'm not a huge social media person. So my website and YouTube are probably the best way to get the most information.
Okay. Okay. And you could find it on the screen and you could find it on the description if you miss it on the screen. So not to worry. All right. Is there anything else final words here? Any final words?
Let's see, final words. Yes, final words. Don't worry, everyone. I know the world is crazy right now, but it's all going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be amazing, magnificent. That's why we're here. We're here to help ourselves and everybody around us to make it through this shift. There's a lot of things coming ahead, so we need to buckle up. We need to have courage and strength, but also, let's rely on each other. Let's make these connections of love. You know what people come from an open heart and what other people come from judgment and harsh
Mhm.
criticism. You don't need that in your life. If something hurts you too much, keep a safe distance and take care of yourself so you can really show up in your own life. This is what we're here to do.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here with us tonight, and I
Thank
want to thank
you.
the audience. Again, please remember to share this so that others can hear all about this and meet this wonderful doctor here who has learned how to do science and spirituality together. Doesn't have to be separate, people.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much again. And as
You.
always, love you all. Bye.